Once again, the Bitcoin group is dedicated to Hangout Toolbox, a really useful piece of software that used to let you put your name below your video. The Bitcoin group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Blake Anderson, cryptographic economist.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show. We've come to kick ass and chew bubblegum.
Chris DeRose from Bitcoin Uncensored.
What's up, party people? Pleasure to join you here today.
Joe Goodman from Haas Online.
Good evening, everyone.
Gabriel D. Vine from Future Rant.
Buenos tardes.
Tone Vase from Liberty Life Trail.
Hello, everyone. Coming to you live from Hunter Mountain, getting ready to go skiing tomorrow.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1. Trump and Bitcoin. America inaugurates a new president today. Businessman Donald Trump takes office riding a wave of Republican populism based upon claims to drain the swamp, free businesses from unnecessary regulation, revise and perhaps terminate international trade agreements, build a wall on the Mexican border, and combat what he calls radical Islamic terrorism. But let's all put all that aside and focus on Bitcoin. Will the new president be good or bad for Bitcoin? Blake Anderson.
Well, I may be alone in this, but I've said for quite a while that I see Bitcoin as, to some extent withdrawing consent from the, insane monetary policies of the United States government and, all the hoopla that they get into. So if you look at this is a bearish investment relative to the dollar, then if Trump makes all these free market changes and the market gets stronger, there would be less reason to really love and enjoy Bitcoin, and the price would naturally go down. If he really does make America great again and deregulates without allowing for regulatory capture to get into the door, then that unfortunately is not going to be great for a bet against the system. But I think that pragmatism, and if we look to the past, we could probably look at reasons that he maybe won't be able to change as many things as we're maybe hoping that he will be able to. So if changes are made, they probably will get bogged down in capture-esque language, and it'll probably slow the economy down. So Bitcoin's probably still a pretty strong investment because Donald Trump isn't quite as classically liberal as maybe we would like for him to see. I'm definitely happy about the transition of power to be moving back from the extreme left slide that we had for so long. But being the kind of ANCAP-ish person that I am, I don't think that the slide is far enough, and I think that Bitcoin is still a strong investment over long horizons. And I guess that's my more in-depth take than just a yes or no answer on the situation.
I would invite our audience to thumbs up and share this video so that more people can watch. Chris DeRose.
Yeah, so I have very different views about this than Blake does. I'm highly skeptical that the election really does make a big difference. If you look at where most of the Bitcoin is being bought right now, it would suggest that the vast majority of it is in China, that the speculative demand there is very high. So does Donald Trump then have authority over the U.S. component of that? And if that's the case, that might very well be less than 5-10% of the price. That being said, he's made a lot of major claims about the nature of what he wants to do in his campaign, some of which were to cut off remittance flow to Mexico. Doing that would, in fact, incite a lot of Mexicans to use Bitcoin as a solution for value routing in ways that they're unable to do so in such an environment. So I think that that's probably not going to come to pass. I mean, that's almost like a declaration of war, even in many terms. And I don't think that would happen. But at least at some level, he seems inspired enough to cut off financial access to people, and that's generally a good thing for Bitcoin. You also have to say to yourself, well, how does that compare to the other candidate, Hillary Clinton? And it's very hard for me to really quantify the wheres in the hows. I think that her campaign perhaps was going to be a little bit more permissive in the war on drugs. I mean, Donald Trump said that was something that he was very for in the past. I don't know if his mind has changed. And so that would be another source of inflow. If we had better regulations preventing street dealers and such from selling drugs, that would be a boom to online drug deals and drug sales. And I think that would probably also be a way that Trump probably compared favorably. But again, I think that most of the actual purchasing right now is being done in China. So I'm actually not that concerned or skeptical or anything really about the election. It's very interesting, and we shall see. But I don't think it's as interesting as some of the other inflows at the moment.
I think at this point, Trump's brand is uncertainty, and uncertainty is good for Bitcoin. Theo Goodman.
Good. Trump is good for Bitcoin, definitely. I'm going to give a clear answer. It's good. It doesn't matter at all what real power or control is. It's all about perception. And the perception is Trump runs the world because the US is the free world, and everyone most of the people in the world are freaking out, and they don't know what to do because Trump, and what are we going to do? Oh no, and it's the end of the world, and what's going to happen, and I don't know what's going on. So just because of that alone, and of course, like what Chris brought up about the wall or the economic wall or whatever kind of restrictions, just the perception that that's even possible is definitely good for the price. And it's also good for, people learning about it and figuring out different ways to maybe use Bitcoin. So I think that definitely plays into it. Who knows what's going to happen, but I think that it's not negative. Also, of course, we've heard a lot of the chatter about cabinet people that maybe are associated with Bitcoin and so on. So it looks like he's keeping an open mind to cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin and so on. So let's hope that he doesn't go down the other path, that is the left-hand path of blockchain. Let's hope that he doesn't do that and he goes to the correct way to Bitcoin. And of course, Trump is great for rare Pepe Cash, and you need to get some right now. Thanks a lot, Tux Exchange, for adding it, and get on that stuff.
Completely confused me with the Pepe Cash. I would say that, go ahead, Gabriel Devine.
Thanks, Thomas. I kind of agree, I would say, with most of what you guys are saying, especially you, Thomas. Uncertainty is good for Bitcoin, and Trump's brand definitely incorporates and represents uncertainty at this time. Nobody has any idea really what he's going to do. Politicians don't have a history of living up to their word or really have anything to do with their rhetoric on the campaign trail. So we'll have to see. But looking at the cabinet choices, we see everything from Goldman Sachs total insiders like Mnuchin, all the way to advisors, maybe not official cabinet, but guys like Peter Thiel coming out big in support of Trump. There's a lot of rumblings in the conspiracy world as the rep from that area on the show. I think it's my responsibility to pass on what the rumor mill says, which is Thiel's Palantir cyber surveillance Silicon Valley company is going head to head with the CIA apparatus in order to defend Trump from their machinations. So apparently some sort of deep state battle going on there. So that would make some sense, I think, interestingly. On the protectionism trade blocks side, I think that will have an effect on Bitcoin in general. I think we're going to see a lot more protectionism around the world from governments as populism is on the rise. And what that means is that we're going to have governments attempting to stop trade or slow down trade or control it more. So that means that more trade will go into the black market. I think we're going to see a lot more what we consider to be legitimate goods and services being traded across borders, attempting to evade coast guards, et cetera, and to evade the controls on financial flows. So that's superb for Bitcoin, of course. If enough industries, start to adopt cryptocurrency as a means of transmitting their funds back and forth, you're going to see some closed loops adding a lot of wealth to the Bitcoin ecosystem, which translates into an increased exchange rate. On the financial collapse side, once again, the rumblings from the woo-woo crazy world are that the plunge protection team, et cetera, all the manipulation of the markets coming out of the Treasury and supplied by the Fed with fiat currency in order to basically manipulate market prices. Apparently, they say that Trump wants to stop that. If he does, we're going to see massive market dislocations, huge collapses, etc. And in a environment of that type of collapse in the United States, I think we might see a lot of population flow south over the border, and in which case Mexico would be very incentivized to build the wall at their expense. So that is what the rumor mill is saying about the wall. I wouldn't be surprised if nothing at all comes from it, but in any case, financial collapse and removal of market manipulation is, of course, very beneficial to Bitcoin too.
And Mexico pays for the wall after all. It would be interesting to see a comparison of Palantir's open source intelligence model with the CIA's closed source model. And to agree with Theo, they haven't said anything negative about Bitcoin yet, but Russia has banned and attempted to ban Bitcoin several times. So we're not sure.
Are you sure? Is Palantir open source? Really?
I'm not sure. I think it's been described as by using public sources on the internet, it's like scanning web pages. So that would be open source that it's reading, whereas the CIA is more a series of agents bringing in reports, or of a close. I would have to look into it more. But Tone Vase, are you ready?
I'm gonna let Chris jump in.
Yeah, just
here
real
in a
quick.
comment.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, just one real quick thing. As Gabriel was saying, we're not talking about the cabinet advisors enough here, and I would hope that, in fact, Tone could comment on that. The one major one is Balaji himself, which in a Hillary administration would not be running the FDA by this time next year. So it could be said at some level, and this could be good or bad, but the Trump administration was the reason for the current state of 21, which is basically a rudderless ship without a product. Now, Tone, do you want to talk about that and everything else?
And just to recap for the audience, Balaji, the CEO of 21, the Bitcoin company that made a small mining and networking device, has he been appointed FDA commissioner, or he's going to be appointed?
Was he going to be appointed commissioner? I thought he was just going to be an employee there.
No, I think he's on, as far as I know, he's on the short list for commissioner.
Yeah,
right. I don't think it's been decided yet, but it's looking.
The main thing we know is that he deleted his entire Twitter history. So we do believe that
part of the
he's going into government.
Balaji's qualifications are that he has a total biotech background and a degree, like a PhD in biophysics or something. He's got a serious,
a very impressive biotech startup. I don't have the exact details, but
much more impressive than 21.
Indeed. But yeah, I think that's what's going on. It's FDA commissioner, Tone. So
okay, interesting. So if Balaji does get in there, I mean, obviously we all know about the success of 21, but Balaji does seem to generally understand what Bitcoin is. So the good news is that if Balaji gets in there, he can at least explain to that, was it the Treasury Secretary or another appointment of the guy that actually had that quote in the article talking about how good blockchain technology is. So maybe Balaji can set that guy straight of what blockchain technology actually is. So at this point, I actually would like to see Balaji in that position, because at least he can separate blockchain from Bitcoin. So that would be great. Again, yeah, I wasn't really going to talk about the appointments either. That's just a lot of speculation. So as far as Trump, I'm going to try and mention something that hasn't been said. Oh, by the way, it's great to see Chris on here. I was down in Miami for 7 days. I started to take over his show and sneak on there. So it's great to have Chris on here to return the favor. But so I'm going to say something that hasn't been said, which is the tax issue. So everyone talked about the positives that Trump can bring to Bitcoin. So here's the big negative. Hillary would have been great for Bitcoin because as a socialist, or Bernie, they would have, ramped up the taxes and and in that whole area. Trump is actually anti-taxes. I don't know if he can pull it off, but he sure as hell gonna try. So if Trump lowers taxes and starts to bring that money home like he claims he will, that would actually be kind of bad for Bitcoin. To me, Bitcoin was gonna serve a huge role in the tax evasion area, like it has in the drug markets and in some of the other markets. So I think Trump can cut that off at its knees by dropping taxes to the point where it doesn't, where the risk of routing your value through Bitcoin to avoid taxes, it just isn't worth it. So that's kind of my view on taxes, and Hillary was going to ramp that one up. I don't like his stance on Snowden and sharing of information. His tweets are kind of confusing. At first, people tweeted at me saying that, oh, Trump is a Snowden supporter. He wants to bring him home with an apology. And then people sent me the entire conversation. And it turns out that Russia would be sending Snowden home with an apology from Russia for why they were keeping him. So Trump definitely isn't open to something like WikiLeaks in existence. And Bitcoin will continue to serve its purpose in contribution and moving things around in order to help information flow, like paying for information flowing through the system. I'm not sure about his stand on drugs. I believe he's a little more anti-drugs than Hillary is, but also it's perception. Like Hillary as a Democrat, they're trying to get the black vote. They're trying to get the minority vote. Obviously, the minorities are more into drugs than the more middle class, higher up people. Even though Chris DeRose will disagree with that, but that's the perception, right? Again, it's not the reality; it's the perception. I'm a trader. It's the rumor. It's not the news. The perception is that if you're middle class and upper, you don't do drugs, even though that might not be true, but that's the perception. And if you're poor, you're a drug user. So I think that's one of the reasons why the Democrats are actually openly to the public a little more pro-drugs, while the Republicans are openly anti-drugs. But behind closed doors, it could be the complete opposite. So I don't know. So even though Trump says he's open to the drug angle, he may not be behind closed. Oh, sorry, it's the other way around. Even though Trump says he's anti-drugs publicly, privately he may actually wouldn't. He doesn't even care about the drug angle. So that's just another thing to consider. I don't know which way that would go. I think Chris wants to comment on something I've said.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think that generally drug dealers are minorities and drug users are white. Is usually how the statistics would let me to believe. But that's an aside. Oh, the only thing I would add here too is that I think that there's some allegations that Donald Trump is in full a climate denier. I don't know how true that is, but what I will say is that if he has the inclination to lower energy prices by pushing those externality costs onto our environment, it may be that he ends up subsidizing the mining networks here in the United States more and allows us to compete with the Chinese miners with access to cheaper energy prices and with an increase in externality costs being borne by American citizens, if that's what he's advocating.
He's going to have to fire up a lot of coal-powered plants to get us cheap enough energy to compete with China's subsidy. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, just a thought.
I agree with that also. But Chris, let me just punt something back to you a little bit. Where you said most of the drug dealers are minorities, but most of the drug users are, middle to upper class. But is that may be the reality? But do you see that as the perception as portrayed upon by the mainstream media?
I'm very out of tune with how the media portrays things. I would defer to you. If you said it was, I wouldn't even argue.
If you watch the show Intervention, then I think it's mostly white people.
I mean, historically, it's worth mentioning that the penalties for crack cocaine were much more harsh than the penalties for cocaine that was used at the higher levels of Wall Street versus the ghettos. And we can also say that mainly we're talking about marijuana legalization here, which I don't think the Trump administration is going to stand in the way of. It could be a $5 billion a year industry next year, could be $50 billion in 5 years. I think the Trump administration, if anything, is going to want to negotiate, get a cut of that, get some taxes, and get in on that deal. But let's move on.
One last thing. Sorry, one last thing. All of this Bitcoin talk and Trump, I think it's way premature, and I think it's meaningless compared to Trump's 3 biggest appointments. Will he keep Janet Yellen as the head of the Federal Reserve or replace her? Who will he put as the 9th and last Chief Justice on the Supreme Court? And who is he going to put as the head of the the Justice Department? I think those 3 appointments are by far the most important things he will do. And anything related to Bitcoin is so far down from those three. And I think those are the three that people should be focusing on, even in the Bitcoin space.
I was going to do the Karnak bit, but the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. But let's move on to the exit question. The price of Bitcoin next week, 1 week into the Trump administration, will be up or down? Blake Anderson.
I'm just going to copy the Dow chart for his inauguration versus Obama's. The direct overlap was that the Dow is higher than it was for him. So will Bitcoin be up or down? Is it a bearish or bullish investment? God, that logic should say down, but I think it's going to be up. It's got some strong underpinnings right now. I think it'll be up.
Chris DeRose.
I believe price discovery is a random walk, and I don't have that information. Tone tells me otherwise, so I'm going to defer to whatever he tells us.
Theo Goodman.
I'm going to go with first of all, you have to open your ears and listen to the trumpets, and they tell me 777.
Gabriel D. Vine.
Wow, big drop from Theo. I think actually we are going to see an upsurge at the end of the month, maybe not by the 27th, but I'm just going to say slightly up, 910, just randomly. But I do agree with Chris that it's very random at the week level.
I just want to chime in real quick. If somebody's watching this, can they put the time into finding out who is right the most often on the show on these predictions, or who has the worst and best track record? That'd be a good project for somebody.
It's Tone. We don't have to. It's Tone. We don't have to ask anybody. It's Tone.
It's available. They can do it on Wikipedia, but I don't suggest.
Oh wait, is Tone both?
Based.
Is Tone both the best and the worst?
We haven't kept track. That's the problem. That's
We
the thing.
purposely don't keep track, but I imagine that I'm one of the worst.
Mine's really bad. My history is very bad.
I would bet you all do almost exactly the same. That would be my guess.
Mr. Tone, he's got the charts. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, I'm on screen share right now, real quick. I had my cup and handle pattern, and I put this green arrow during the presentation in Miami. Chris watched that presentation live. I even gave it a timeline of within 72 hours to hit 9:15. I was a little bit off. It hit 9:15 1 day later, so it wasn't 72 hours. It was 72 hours plus 24 hours. It also created another bullish pattern, and which is supposed to take us up to 950. And I will just jump onto this chart right here, where we came close to hitting the top of the channel, came down to the bottom of the channel, and now I am looking for prices to go up following this arrow. So I am bullish from here on out, and I might be saying higher for the next several months. We're doing this question, so higher.
That's good, because I was going to say up anyway. Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2, Barry Silbert and Ethereum Classic. Ethereum, which famously split into two currencies, with its developers creating a new chain to restore the $50 million stolen by the Dow hacker, while others stuck with the original chain and created Ethereum Classic. After a rocky start, the currency now has the support of famed digital currency group investor Barry Silbert, who has invested in several ETH Classic companies and now is said to be funded an ETH Classic ETC. The price of EthC has reacted positively to this news. But will you? Chris DeRose, what is the future of Ethereum and Ethereum Classic?
Sorry, Thomas, did you mean ETC ETF? Because that Ethereum Classic ETF? Because that didn't make sense.
Yeah, an Ethereum Classic ETF.
Okay, because you said Ethereum Classic ETC. That's why it was confusing.
It's an ETC ETF.
Right, there you go. Okay.
Say that 20
ET
times.
phone home.
Yeah.
ET phone home.
And now, Chris, the question everyone's waiting for.
Yeah, so I am the quintessential BTC maximalist. That post was written in response to me when Vitalik coined the term, and I have not changed my views at all. I don't see any utility whatsoever for this project. I think Ethereum is just an ornate Ponzi. Now, what I will say is, let's say I'm wrong. I would like to see ETC do better. They have not broken the community promise. Let's just see if someone finds any use for this thing. The NASDAQ, frankly, is a project that is slightly interesting. Out of the entire space, it's only that's slightly interesting. And I don't see how you could possibly host NASDAQ on the Ethereum Foundation. There are many cases where your PEPs may or may not, need to clear, or there'd be censored PEPs, et cetera. And I don't think they could honor the promise that they've made to the community, given the DAO fork that they've engaged upon. So I would like to see the ETC price perhaps succeed at the expense of ETH price. What I will say, what that I think is going on with Barry Silbert, I don't know him very well personally. We've talked off and on. I think that he likes to test the market with his pronouncements. I think he likes to see what degree of influence he has. And I also think that he wants other investors to see him at least as having some degree of exposure to the ETH market, so that he himself is not labeled a Bitcoin maximalist for political reasons. What I would also say is I've known Matt Tan, I believe, over there at Etherscan for quite a while. He did the counterparty blockchain scanner. And I haven't heard this from him, but sources close to him have told me that he hasn't invested very much money at all in the project. So I think that this is mostly a move to signal and not much else. As far as a actual index fund is concerned, I'm so skeptical these things are going to come out anytime soon. It's just the vaporware. I would like to see them come out, but it's taken a while. That's all.
The only thing we really know is this made the price go up. Theo Goodman.
What was the exact question again?
What is the future of Ethereum and Ethereum Classic?
I don't know. I think the future of Ethereum looks to be on private blockchains. That's the thing that keeps popping up more and more. So it's not Ethereum, the public blockchain, but what keeps on being championed and talked about is Ethereum on private blockchains, Ethereum for companies, but they call it, cool names like Ethereum Enterprise. It's kind of like Star Trek or something. It's just, you come up with cool names for private blockchains, basically rebrand them Ethereum something. I mean, if CoinSense invested all this money, they got to make something work, right? And the public blockchain didn't really work out great in 2016, considering everything that happened. I mean, think of all the resets we had last half of 2016, all kinds of stuff going on. So I think that's the direction of Ethereum, Vitalik Ethereum, and Ethereum Classic is more like an altcoin. They're still trying to figure out if there is a real use for it, or, besides speculation and all that, what's going on with it? Can we do this, etc.? That's going more the altcoin route, and Ethereum Vitalik is going more of we have this public blockchain that theoretically you could interface with. Why you would need to do that is unclear, or how big the blockchain is going to be and all that stuff is really unclear, but that's going the private way.
The future of this year's buzzword is last year's buzzword combined with this year's buzzword. Gabriel D. Vine.
I was very, very entertained when somebody on Twitter shared with me the Reddit thread that was posted on the Ethereum subreddit about this investment trust project announcement, and all of the butthurt ether huffers over there just in an outcry over this and how it's so bad. And it's like, really, guys? I mean, why is this thing a problem? In any case, I think I'm with Chris on Ethereum in general. I mean, with new technologies, you never really know. And I maintained sort of a neutral stance on Ethereum from the beginning. I was skeptical, but, I don't have the expertise to go and read the white paper and point out all the weaknesses and everything. But as more and more rhetoric has come out of the Ethereum Foundation in Switzerland over time, and as I've seen Vitalik Buterin's statements over time, it is pretty fucking clear that this thing is a very sophisticated scam. Even Steemit's confusing bullshit, convoluted crap can't hold a candle to how many people were drawn in by the dream of a world computer. It's a wonderful dream, but this system is like ridiculous. And the weaknesses of having a fully, Turing complete scripting language inside of a blockchain, It definitely seems insurmountable. I once again agree with Chris that you never say with 100% certainty, but even if even because Ethereum Classic is not doing the difficulty bomb and moving to proof of stake, that's not going to save it from these inherent weaknesses. So it's interesting to see somebody throw their money behind it. I'm not surprised. We'll see if he can actually get any money. I think Silbert is mostly a troll. So we'll see what kind of projects happen in the future. I think most of this stuff is basically destined for the dust heap of history.
It's a good point, Gabe. The gas heads prefer to roll their own DAOs. Tone Vase.
All right, well, let me start with, I do not consider Barry Silbert a troll. However, we've covered all of these topics on previous on previous shows here on the Bitcoin group. So I would strongly encourage those that haven't seen the older ones, if you go to my blog, you can just do a search in my blog for Ethereum Classic, do a search for EthC, do a search for Barry Silbert, and you will watch these shows. So let me start off with the week that Ethereum was forking. I was very adamant that I expected the Ethereum Classic to one day match Ethereum in both price and hashing power. Now, it's possible that Ethereum is going to go proof of stake, so the hashing power won't matter, but I've always expected Ethereum Classic to even out. So that was my prediction, that they will be at the same price. Now, as for Barry Silbert, again, if you Google if you search for Barry Silbert on my blog for these shows, I was incredibly critical of Barry Silbert. That was the first time I've ever been critical of Barry Silbert. I think you remember this, Thomas. I said how irresponsible it was and how borderline. I don't understand how he's not breaking like laws and possible real laws of him coming out about Ethereum Classic back when it was like 10, 20 cents and talking about how he just bought a bunch of it and how he is supporting it. And I said, he's causing this rampant pump up, and nobody knows if he was just selling it at like $1 because it was that pump. The market is so shallow, it's so small, his voice. And I honestly felt it was very, very irresponsible for him to do that. And ever since then, he just continued to double down on that. So I am still very critical of Barry Silbert for doing this. And he should know better because there's no regulation in the space. So in a way, he's not doing anything illicit. But for me, it just feels wrong for someone in his position to do that and take advantage like that for personal gain. So that bothered me from the first moment I saw him do it with Ethereum Classic at like 10 or 20 cents, whatever price it was during the episode when we covered the story initially. Now, let's talk about the ETF real quick. Again, this is something I've been saying for a long time, and Chris DeRose also mentioned it for a while. Getting a Bitcoin ETF out there has the slippery slope of now the SEC becomes the authority on which altcoin is a scam and which altcoin isn't a scam, because the moment you allow a Bitcoin ETF, you now have to make evaluations on all of these other coins. And they're in no position to do that. Now, I think Ethereum is nonsense. I think I like Ethereum Classic that it caused all these problems in Ethereum, but I don't think Ethereum Classic is going to get you anywhere either. It's literally just for the price. So filing for this ETF, I mean, there's money to be made there from people, but I think it's grossly irresponsible. This is also why it's grossly irresponsible to have a Bitcoin ETF. I guess if I'm going to remain being critical of Barry Silbert, I keep saying this, I just don't have the time to dig into his current product of the savings and the Bitcoin trust. But from what I understand, and after speaking with some of the people invested in it, initial investors have to be high net worth individuals that are going in at $25,000 increments. That money is locked up for at least a year, and after that, they can sell it. I was under the impression that they can sell it and take the cash, at which point Barry Silbert puts the Bitcoin back into the Bitcoin economy by selling it, or the user can just request the Bitcoin from Barry Silbert, and Barry Silbert just transfers that person the Bitcoin. Apparently, that is not how it's done. Once your 1 year period is up, you then sell those shares on the open market to anyone through E-Trade. So that means Barry Silbert has completely contracted the supply of Bitcoin, and this is why the price of the GBTC shares on the open market is trading at like a 60-70% price of Bitcoin. And as far as I know, there's absolutely no mechanism to put the Bitcoin sitting at Zappo back into the Bitcoin economy circulation. And I think this is incredibly dangerous. It's locking up this Bitcoin as a giant honeypot, not only from internal problems like Mt. Gox, external problems like Bitfinex, and regulatory problems, or for example, China coming in, it's a Chinese company, and they say, oh, Bitcoin is ours now if you are a foreign investor. Anyway, I'm just not happy with some of those moves in this financial space.
Sounds like a Pandora's box. Blake Anderson.
Well, I mean, I can see the value of having a trading fund that's going to, encourage responsible investment horizons and things which can otherwise be way too volatile for your average investor to get in. But if it's large-scale investors and there's people that are going after signals from people in the space that are, like, let's say that you're a venture capitalist and you want to, go out and have, an exciting time with your money, and you want to go invest in companies. You invest in a whole lot of a range of companies. And then if a few of them work out, that's generally about the odds of being a venture capitalist that's, going to have any level of success. Most of them have none. So, I mean, like, the survival being the exception and not the rule is especially true in business. So, I mean, when Barry goes out and spreads all of his money around, I don't think that's an insane thing to do. It's what most people are doing. It's very, very rare to see, a venture capitalist who's really, 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 really smart at the field that he's in and is just crushing it all the time. That would actually almost kind of transcend the definition of venture capitalist to some extent. They're not going to have a wide variety of things that they invest in. So when I see Barry investing in things like Ethereum or Ethereum Classic and stuff like that, I mean, it's not the best signal. But when Tone is talking about, there's going to be risks involved if there's going to be an ETF, I mean, that's true that there's going to be risks involved. I mean, the benefit would be, more responsible horizons can be, grouped into and then taken out of, so that people generally get a more favorable view of things. But any kind of an Ether ETF, I mean, I don't think that the long-term viability of that medium of exchange is anything that anybody should be talking about. Like, the fact that Ethereum tokens with an operational connotation are sold on Coinbase is infuriating to me. That's absolutely ridiculous. Why they did that, I have no idea. And my level of respect for that company went down just more than anything else could have. So I think that very, very early on, when I was told about Ethereum, can I do a screen share here? Let's see. Oh, there's a picture of me and there's a picture of Vitalik, and I'm sitting next to him, and like, I'm a pretty smiley guy. I'm always like, yay, let's get into this with, an open mind and stuff. And there's a picture, you can probably find it on my Twitter feed, of Vitalik, with talking with his hands and explaining something to me. And I'm just like, I have no smile on my face. I'm kind of looking down and looking up with my eyes. Like, this is, from what I know about project management and computer science, this is scope bloat and an infinite attack vector surface that you're going to sell to people. And in my mind, all I could hear was the Doge community saying to the moon. And that's still my opinion of all of this software. I mean, like, Eris Industries forks down the nightmare of a project so that you could actually start to try to get a handle on the attack vector and the scope bloat, and maybe try to pare it down and use it for something. As far as I know, there's not a whole bunch of people with, robust businesses operating on the Eris Industries fork of the chain or their software package. So I just don't think that articles like this are really legitimately trying to build out the Ethereum infrastructure long term. I think that they're trying to pump the price up and to keep the price alive, because so many people that were in a position to invest in Bitcoin type stuff spread their money over into Ether just because they thought it was good to diversify. And now we have this huge amount of people with, relatively large amount of influence that are, constantly trying to come up with new stuff to say about the emperor's clothes. And I personally find it relatively disgusting.
Oh, can I just jump right in here? Just one quick thing. So on top of everything we just said, and then Blake partially mentioned, so on top of everything, Barry has like so much influence because he owns a media company and an event hosting company, right? So he can really like, and then easily pump them up through media reach. It's yeah, but I guess this is what us anarchists want, right? No rules and regulations. So this is what we're getting, right? It's like one person can like monopolize everything.
It is very much an unregulated market.
Real quick, while we're on the subject of CoinDesk, because I do write for them, Barry has been pretty hands off of CoinDesk thus far, and mostly just because he has, from what I've heard, Pete Rizzo is fighting very hard to keep it that way, and I don't think he's ever received much in the way of pressure in that attempt. But Ryan Selkis, he is a kind of a loose cannon in that enterprise, and he is particularly sympathetic towards a lot of these scams. So we'll see if that actually ends up being like a Barry Silbert chill enterprise through his leadership, but that remains to be seen.
Well, the chat keeps calling him Barry Silbert, which I think is funny.
Well, during the last price rise of Bitcoin, Ryan and there were some other people on Twitter, but I do remember specifically said, I think the price was, getting around 1,000. I'm buying some Ethereum here and this other shitcoin too, and this other one. I think it's a good buy here. No investment advice. One of those kind of tweet disclaimer signaling things. Of course, it's not investment advice, everyone. So, but I'm just saying, I bought some. Maybe it's a good price, but no investment advice. Okay, guys, just no advice.
Yes, I agree with you. They might try to keep it completely separate, but Fluffy Pony of Monero had clearly demonstrated how much Monero was covered by CoinDesk versus all of these other coins, especially Ethereum and some of the other ones. And if Barry really wants to be hands-off, he should be hands-off. He shouldn't be stating his security investments in the altcoin space while also talking about which companies he's funding. And at the same time, he does own a media publication. So it doesn't even have to be direct. If some of the writers for CoinDesk knows that Barry favors one coin over the other, that's the coin they're going to try and use in their articles. It's not a conspiracy. It's just, they might not even realize they have this bias, but they do, because that's the coin they hear from the people above them in the same organization.
And to their defense, CoinDesk has put a disclaimer on all of their articles whenever the digital currency group is also invested in the company that they're covering. Go ahead, Chris.
No, all I was going to say is that I was relatively close to all of those decisions, if not directly, certainly by way of leakers. And Barry really was fairly out. It's Ryan himself who's like the new Bruce Fenton. He kind of believes whichever way the wind blows. That's what his conviction is that day. So when he effectively believes in UFOs at this point. So when like the consensus conference came and went, he was completely sympathetic towards all of the Ethereum pumpers, and there's really not a lot of leadership there. I wouldn't attribute that to, from what I've seen at least, to part of a Barry Silbert sort of agenda. That being said, there was a reason that he bought that company, but then again, they're like the only profitable company I think in his whole portfolio. So like it could also just be a very easy numbers thing for them too.
Chris, I've seen a UFO, but I've never seen a useful application built on Ethereum.
I'm not going to argue that. I haven't seen a UFO, but I believe that you saw a UFO before I saw a useful Ethereum app. Look, Vitalik's just a scammer. You guys may or may not believe that, but I remember prior to Ethereum, he was raising money for a quantum computer. That whole project was absurd, and he really just went right from that project into Ethereum when he saw that that's what people wanted to put their money into.
We've been pretty critical of Ethereum around these parts. So
most people on the show may not have, a full opinion that Vitalik is a scammer, but pretty much there's a general consensus that Vitalik is not a superstar rock star, nor as smart as other people claim that he is. So I think that's the more general consensus here.
And to go back to what Blake was saying, infinite attack vectors is quite a lot of attack vectors. And while we don't know the long-term results of Silbert's investment, we do know that in the short term, he made out like a bandit. Let's move on to the exit question. Who will win? Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, or nobody? Chris DeRose.
Nobody. that's just going to go to the potato.
Theo Goodman.
I'm listening to the Trump-Pence, and I hear Ethereum Classic winning.
Gabriel D. Vine.
Bitcoin.
Tone Vase.
No, it's probably going to be no, but I don't think they're going to be competing. Vitalik is trying to go proof of stake for two reasons, in my opinion. Before Ethereum Classic, I said, well, Vitalik can't go proof of stake. Ethereum Classic, and my view, Vitalik has now become the testnet developer for Ethereum Classic. I don't know how he's going to want to do that, so he's going to want to fork into proof of stake. And then it won't matter. Then they'll be completely different things. So I don't think they'll be competing in the same way.
Blake Anderson.
So I was distracted by Tone's connection quality. What was the connection again? Or what was the connection again? What was the question again?
Ethereum Classic or nobody. Who will win?
Yeah, that's right. I think that they bought a lot of time. Now they can argue between the two forks and which one's more legitimate, instead of people talking about how the entire thing is just absolutely computer science nonsense that's not tenable from the first information theory that was put out there. So I think they bought themselves a lot of time. They can change what the question is instead of the tenability of the whole system. But eventually they're both going to lose, because without them being forced down to make that attack vector smaller and actually get some kind of control over the technology, I mean it can't be used. It's a security risk to use it. So I mean that's not very good for their long-term value prop.
Chris stole my thunder, but the answer is still nobody. Moving on to issue 3. Issue 3, MadBitcoins exclusive interview with Mark Karpeles. Enterprising Bitcoin journalist MadBitcoins dominates the world of Bitcoin news, launching an exclusive interview with Mark Karpeles, thanks to the help of Tone Vase and Krista Rose of Bitcoin Uncensored. Karpeles expressed a belief that the hack was caused by their hosting provider, that he will fight vigorously in the trial, and that he feels bad for the loss of users' Bitcoin, but falls back on blaming the hackers. He also denied that the trade bots had an effect, although quickly changed his answer from they to these. Karpeles indicated that although his next venture will not be in the cryptocurrency industry, he does wish to make himself available to attempt to explain the hacking situation, and perhaps will do a proper interview on the MadBitcoins program soon. Theo Goodman, your thoughts on Karpeles' answer and this shocking, breaking story broken by our very own MadBitcoins.
I want to make sure that everyone goes over to the MadBitcoins YouTube channel, hit subscribe, give him thumbs up, and share this. Also go over to his Twitter and make sure that you follow him for the latest in breaking news, such as this latest tidbit of Mark Karpeles. He has been, I've heard, that he has been hanging out on Telegram, and he's accessible. He'll talk to you. He'll share some apple pie recipes, talk about cats, just kind of normal hanging out things. And he seems pretty reasonable. He's not being ultra defensive or anything like that. He's just like, yeah, this is the situation. This is the status of the case. Here we go. If you guys want to get up with me, then just contact me. So actually, that's pretty cool. Let's see how things develop. You can have whatever theory that you want, but he's not. He hasn't really disappeared or is in hiding, so he's just kind of around. And I think, hey, that's good. And next time I want to bake apple pie, I'm gonna hit him up.
And agreed, Theo. Full credit to Krista Rose and the Telegraph group, where Mark Karpeles turned out to be hanging out. We got the chance to ask him a few questions and publish the results. Gabriel D. Vine.
Yeah, I was really shocked to see MadBitcoins coverage of Mark Karpeles, and to see what he had said. I didn't actually even, I didn't follow the details of the Gox case in that much regard, but to see that they even had a hosting provider is actually the height of incompetence. It's totally ridiculous. Any high security company like that should never have outsourced their hosting. That's a horrible idea. Oh my God. I mean, it's bad enough that they coded up the middle tier in PHP, which is a known buggy language with tons of security holes and possibilities for leaks. You know, they were using libraries that you know, are terrible. You know, with their updates and everything. But I didn't actually even realize that they had outsourced their hosting. If you have a high security platform, you have to manage the host yourself. You have to manage the servers yourself. I mean, it's, you know, for example, I'm working with a client right now that has a very sensitive platform with
all on Dropbox.
Right. I'm working with a client right now that has a project that's extremely forward-looking and sort of technologically edgy, so to speak, and they would never consider outsourcing any of this stuff because their intellectual property is too valuable. They need to keep it under lock and key. And to run a Bitcoin exchange on somebody else's server is the height of incompetence and stupidity. And unlike Theo, I don't think being available and not being reactive is any excuse for losing a bunch of people's money due to straight up incompetence. That's ridiculous.
I didn't say it's an excuse. I'm just glad to see him around. That's all.
And our project is perfectly safe. We've stored it in the cloud. Tone vase.
Yeah, I'm so glad that Mark Karpeles is around and we might get to hear some of the stories. I've always believed that it was more incompetence and not a blatant hack by him. And I mean, this is what happens in this industry. So even when I talked about exchanges on my panels and I moderated panels of exchanges, I've always kind of gave credit to Mt. Gox. You know, they took the initiative. They were the first exchange. If it wasn't for Mt. Gox, we would have never had an initial price. They kind of kicked it all off. So it ended the way it ended. It ended probably just on time. It was big enough to put a big scare, but not big enough to, you know, completely destroy the ecosystem. So, I mean, the industry worked itself out. We got out of it. Our current exchanges are a little bit better, even though they're still being hacked, but they're being hacked for smaller sums of money. It will be great to see Mark Karpeles here. I've also reached out to him. We spoke in a private message. I'll try and get him for one of my shows, but I will leave all of the history and his personal situation to this show and Thomas. And I'd like to talk about, he does have some expertise in this space, and I would like to hit on that.
It would be interesting to hear what he has to say. Blake Anderson.
Well, I mean, it's sad that he was a mover and a shaker early on. I think that the scaling failures that are so obvious to us in retrospect, or that are obvious to people that have worked in the space. I was very, very hard on him at first, but I worked as an information technology math-based security project manager for a bank. So from the Dunning-Kruger effect, like, I falsely conclude that other people know all the stuff that I know. So I don't know. I was pretty hard on him for a long time in the early days. And at this point, I just got to say, you know, I guess I wouldn't have done those same things, but I wasn't an early mover and a shaker and didn't do all the work that he put in. So I probably don't have too much of a right to stand up and continue to shout at him after all this time. So I'll just leave it at that.
It does look like he may have been in over his head. And if the hosting provider was the problem, it might even be outside his control. Chris DeRose.
So I'm a big part of this story, and I actually have a lot more firsthand access to everything that's going on, I think, both on your end and on his end and so on and so forth. So I think that my opinion could probably be of some use to all of you. So first and foremost, I'm actually meeting with him in about 10 days or so. Now, for me, I'm going to be doing something with him. I haven't decided what. You know, I want to feel him out and see where he's at. There's a hard story to tell there. It's a good story. But I think a lot of people want to, like, nail this guy on a cross, or they want to, like, drag him through the mud. And I don't see it that way. I don't think that's an interesting story, because all you're going to do is berate the guy for stuff that he can't change, which I know I berate people, but I berate people for things that they can change. He can't change anything. And I think that you lose a lot of the lessons learned when you do that on a guy like him. The scam is over. It's been completed. And I want to hear what came to be, how he felt, where things went south. Because I think Tone might have said this before. I don't think he knew really the point at which he went south on this deal. He might have. There remains to be seen. But I think he just woke up one day and was running a Ponzi. And I've talked to a number of guys on my show about this. Trendon Shavers was one of them. And in fact, one of the big mysteries I have is to the degree that the Trendon Shavers scam was connected to Mt. Gox. There's a lot of allegations there. But I think that he was trying to do his best to change the world, make some money, and then the whole thing went south. And I was there. I was involved in all of the hearings. I think I lost like $5. Actually, I had like a few Satoshis on there by the time that thing went south. But you got to remember the time. At the time, this was the Magic the Gathering online exchange. And the people that were investing their money were all there to get rich quick. They thought they held zero risk on that transaction. I know that, and you should all know, that if you hold your money in a bank called Magic the Gathering online exchange, run by a man and his cat, young adults, that you don't get any guarantees for like the security of your money, particularly in a science and a field that was so new and so risky. So I don't know that I actually have a lot of compassion for him. My view on scammers is extremely nuanced, and I don't think everybody really gets it. But a lot of listeners to be you do. And at this point, the damage has been done. The time has been served, or at least it is on its way to being served. And more so than anything else, I want to get the story of how things came to be and what lessons can be learned for the future for the next guy. Because I think that the big underlying story for the vast majority of these things are that these people generally don't know they're running scams. I think they generally are trying their best. Yeah.
So here's the thing, right? I understand where the potential scam was for for Shavers, right? Because he was borrowing other people's Bitcoins. He was lending them out under higher risks. Sooner or later, that was going to blow up. Where was the scam in Mt. Gox? Because if it was properly run, there should not have, he wasn't offering anyone returns. He was just an exchange. So where was the scam if not hacked for cold storage? Like, that's the thing. I don't see him as a scammer. Now, perhaps after things went south, he didn't really fess up and try to fix it. But I don't see that he was a scammer that didn't know he was scamming. He just realized one day, holy shit, my Bitcoin is gone.
I think that most people that think that Mark Karpeles is a scam, I'm very sympathetic to your argument, but I think the fact remains that he was entrusted with money and that money disappeared. And rather than tell him at the time it happened, he kind of strung it along. And I think at that point is where he probably incurred the most liability. I believe that he probably had the best of intentions there. I believe that he probably thought there was a chance the money was coming back or that he could make the money back. And as the hole got deeper and deeper, he just got desperate and stopped. He didn't know where to turn. Who do you call? That kind of thing.
Right. No, but my only argument with your statement is, in the case of Trayvon Shavers, offering people, 12% a week or something like that, some kind of crazy return, you could have, had him on your show saying, you're gonna blow up, you're running a scam. But with Mark Karpeles, there's no way you could have done that at the time, right? So I don't see him as a scammer that didn't know he was scamming at any point. Is just that when it happened, then perhaps he became a knowing scammer. But I don't think at any point was he a scammer not knowing he's running a scam. I don't think that, maybe there was like a 3-day window of that, but that's about it.
Yeah, many scams come from a business that was, by the books. Something bad happens, they think they could make it up and then have their income cover it up, and that the ends will justify the means. They get deeper and deeper, and then it turns into a scam. But actually, the chat is talking about transaction malleability, and that is a good topic to bring up right now. Transaction malleability is possible because there's information data that goes into the chain that's not secured in the chain. It's malleable, so they can change it after the fact. It's a problem with Bitcoin that will be solved by actually separating out signatures, activating SegWit. It's one of the reasons that big blocking is categorically inferior to implementation of separating out signatures to make the core software of Bitcoin actually work better. I've been a big advocate of this for a very long time. I don't come out into public and say it a whole lot. This is going to sound arrogant, but being at the certain end of the Dunning-Kruger effect, you assume that other people know this stuff, so you don't go out constantly screaming that you're right, unable to see your own inadequacy. So I think the transaction malleability and any kind of impact that it had with the Mt. Gox case, it should be fixed eventually, and however long that takes is good. I don't think we should have an action bias, fork the chain early, but moving towards a technologically tenable solution for Bitcoin is of material importance, instead of being like, let's bloat the blockchain, let's get big blocks next. now. Let's eventually have the chain be big enough that it's going to have, much less nodes around the world, and then put us at a systemic risk as far as Bitcoin goes. So transaction malleability, the Mt. Gox case, getting that fixed will be one of the main chapters in that story closing up, because that can't happen again. But it also sounds like there was other attack vectors that were penetrated, possibly even as deep as hosting or ISP and things like that. So again, it's not something that we should just say was just Bitcoin's fault, was just Mark's fault, but there was a concert of events that happened early on when people didn't have all this information, and yeah, it's a very, very sad tale for those that lost their money and for Mark himself.
And
So,
while
real
I
quick-
would agree with Tone that there wasn't an outside sign of the Ponzi, I would say the weak PHP interface, the bad name, as Chris mentioned, there was always kind of a questionable cloud over this exchange. You couldn't quite put your finger on it. We didn't warn people overtly, but we did always kind of make fun of it, and that should have been a sign. Go ahead, Tone, did you have more?
Was I giving them mic? Yeah. So first off, on the malleability, there was definitely a malleability bug. Yeah. So there's definitely a malleability. Okay, so there's definitely a malleability bug that they had that lost them some money relatively early on in the exchange's life, but we're pretty sure that that's not the bulk of the losses. I think that theory has been ruled out. But Tone, to your point, there are two incidental scams that actually were humongous scams, potentially, depending on what happens with what Mark has to say. But the first of those, well, I guess this is the big one. The spread was higher on the Gox exchange. So as greed was compelling people to trade there as opposed to other alternatives, they were getting snagged in with some of that risk. And
the Willy bot. Willy bot.
Yes. The Willy bot is the big one. The Willy bot might have cost us all a lot of money if, in fact, the Willy bot was responsible for the entire run-up. Then we all lost, the 50% or so theoretically on this value as a result of that operation.
Yeah,
on the malleability issue, the malleability was an attack at the hot wallet, whereas the other hack may have been the cold wallet. Is that the main separation that we have here, Chris?
I don't think anybody has a real good idea how that got divvied up, because I've heard a couple of versions of that. So these are good questions.
Right, we just don't know. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Tone.
I agree.
It's impossible to say.
I agree with the Willy bot. I think it caused a huge premium in the Bitcoin price, and that's why it took like a year and a half to correct. I think Willy bot had a lot to do with it. But at that point, he's a known scammer. He's not a scammer that doesn't know he's scamming. So that was just kind of my point. And I would love to hear how that. I mean, there's so many questions there. I don't know how much he'll be willing to share, because it might look bad for him even at this stage.
Well, I mean, Tone, this is a central joke on our show. Like, some people aren't a scam yet. So there was a time when Mark Karpeles wasn't a scam yet. And then at some point, he became a
Don't forget,
scam.
he was on the Bitcoin Foundation board. He was a founding member.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
that-
at some point, that changed. You got to figure out, was it 2011 Mark Karpeles that wasn't a scam, or was a scam? Or was it 2013 Mark Karpeles that was a scam? So, like, there's the path to the scammies that you got to remember.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. But at the time when he wasn't a scam, it was impossible. It would have been incorrect to call him a not a scam yet, but will be for sure, like we currently do with cloud mining.
If only we could time travel back and see where he would go on Tone's chart. But we should move on to the exit question. Exit question: Karpeles blames the hackers, but he was responsible for running the exchange. At his Japanese trial, forced prediction: Karpeles will be found. Chris DeRose, guilty or not guilty?
I know very little about Japanese culture, but the impression I get is that when you're in court, you're already guilty. So I'll go with guilty.
Theo Goodman. I have a connection issue. Theo, are you with us? Almost.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right, Gabe.
I had some technical problems. Excuse me. Well, it must have been someone trying to stop me from.
Theo was
expressing
time
that.
traveling to the future to give us the answer.
Yes.
Karpeles,
Yes, that's
guilty
right.
or not guilty?
I don't know. I have no idea about Japanese legal system, but I want to make one last comment that we have now come full circle. Magic the Gathering exchange turned out to be an insecure exchange for trading cards, and now you can trade rare Pepe cards on the DEX 100% secure, and you do not have to give up your private key. We have gone full circle, ladies and gentlemen.
And to agree with Chris, I have heard that Japanese society is very much, if you're accused of something, you must be guilty. Gabriel D. Vaughn.
Yeah, I've heard that same thing about Japan, but you know, given what the information that I've heard, I would expect guilty of gross incompetence, not guilty of malfeasance.
50-50. Tone Vase.
Wow. So this is going to show how much I don't know about this case because I have not followed up with it. Until 2 minutes ago, I was under the impression that he was already found guilty and he had already done his time, and now he's free to go. So I actually just learned that the trial hasn't even started yet. Do we know when the trial is going to start?
We don't know. It's a Japanese court system.
Okay, so I have absolutely no opinion on the subject because I was under the wrong impression from the start. I have not followed up with his legal case.
That's why it's so important to ask him these questions in an interview. And I did ask him in the MadBitcoins interview. How's the trial going? Blake Anderson, guilty or not guilty?
Well, there's no like emperor deciding this in some unilateral thing like
There might be.
1868. No, it's not 1868 anymore. So they've kind of modernized their legal systems, and then again, even more recently in terms of being more Western and actually trying to locate material sources of harm and then either make people whole or punish people. So I mean, I don't think he's going to get the death penalty or anything in Japan, but I do think that they're going to absolutely identify material harm that his incompetence caused, and they're going to charge him with what I think are probably, punishments. I mean, he's not going to be able to make all the people whole that he hurt. So I don't know what those punishments will be, but I would not want to be him.
Unless he can show in the trial that the hack was not his fault, the result will be guilty. Moving on to issue 4. Issue 4, the Miami Bitcoin Conference. Tone Vase and Chris DeRose were in Miami this week for the 4th annual Miami Bitcoin Conference, a gathering of the industry and cryptocurrency enthusiasts. Mr. DeRose hosted a show, Bitcoin Uncensored, that started out in the bathroom but ended up on their own couch, with major interviews and stories to tell. Mr. Vase, Mr. DeRose, how was beautiful Miami? We'll just go to Chris first.
Yeah, I was really honored to see this on the schedule here. Miami's great. I will shamelessly plug Miami for any Bitcoiners listening. It's a wonderful town. There is a lot of Bitcoin that is here. And that particular week is like Bitcoin Week Miami. We've got a number of events leading up to it. I think the week before I had the New York Devs come down. That's my favorite Bitcoin meetup that I've been to. I've been to a lot. That's number one in the country, if not the world. They came down. They did a wonderful event on like technical details of Bitcoin, things that are new. That followed that with the hackathon, for which Tone was in town. We did a wonderful job. That content will be up soon, even discussing the submissions and the outcomes and all of that. And then, yeah, the conference came. I tried something a little different. And the bathroom wasn't it, by the way. The bathroom was fun. That was different. But the thing that I tried out different is I kind of ran my own conference with John Seth. And, everybody that wants to be in a conference are generally vying for positions on the main stage. And I was thinking, like, we're just gonna do a stage B. If you didn't make it into the main stage, you come over to us, and we'll put you on the schedule somewhere. So we did like a CEO panel, we did a law panel, we did the usual John Seth and DeRose interviews with interesting people. And frankly, it has inspired me so much, actually, having had that success, that I want to see more people in the space do that kind of thing. Because I think it's a bit of a shame that the people that go to those conferences get maybe a little bit of a lopsided view on things. They don't quite get as much content as could happen. So I'm releasing
your content really allowed us to get to the man in the crowd, maybe not the guy on the stage, but really, if you have a project you're working on, you're just as valuable as the people on the stage. You might not have VC or a lot of funding, but if you believe in your project and you wanted to speak about it, it seems like you gave them a voice and a chance to speak.
I was really unhappy. I thought that he shouldn't have had an opinion without a whole bunch of VC backing so that he could speak from that perspective. So I was not very happy with Chris for that reason. Go get some funding so you can speak for somebody that has, a tainted opinion, and then you'll belong on the main stage.
Yeah, and your viewership is so small and nobody listens to your podcast or anything. It's just like, I don't even know why anyone spends any time on that dumb, stupid
Such a
bullshit.
small
That's true.
audience.
I have read on Twitter that your opinion has no value. How about that?
Well, I encourage everyone to believe that, certainly. That makes my show fun. In fact, if you do listen to the show, please give us a 1-star review. We are trying to secure our spot as the worst Bitcoin podcast on the internet, not just Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm trying out this camming thing more, and I'm really liking like Exotica, you know, because it gives you that personal feeling of like what's going on. And my rig, Tone has been seeing my rig here getting better and better. And I take the best spots that I find to be the best spots, and I'm putting them up on YouTube. But I think that for a lot of people who want to go to the show, they didn't have the money, they can get a lot of that experience and feel just tuning in on the live stream. And then two, you know, it's also kind of cool, like Antonio and I have been talking about this, like there's not an easy way for us to monetize what we do in this space, but like live streaming has easy hooks for tips. And I'm learning how to like use the audience and sort of give a little bit of preferential treatment to people that tip us. Because if they want like a question asked, like there's a bunch of stuff coming in. There's people whose questions are really good and I like, but then you know what? Like sometimes a little money gives a little bit of more attention maybe. And I could see also people just paying for access at some point, which I would even encourage Tone to do maybe, is to you know have a small charge, you know. But I made a couple $100 on the show, all of which will go back into the show. But all in all, that was like a really big like event for me in terms of how I'm going to structure things going forward. So I'm glad that many of you tuned in for that. And some things you won't be able to see other than on the cam show. We had a blacktop. We called an escort up at the middle of the hackathon, and that you'll be able to see. I'll put that up. But yeah, blacktop came out, and he talked about how the game is a little bit different now that the Backpage ads are being censored, and what's different about his sort of life. And we shared that story. So yeah, we were trying a lot of new stuff on the CamGo networks, and I'm liking it. And I think that was just a wonderful conference all around. We had a lot of great people there, and all in all, like I can't. That's my favorite conference in the space. Really.
And where can the users find this great content?
Cedar Rose 36 is my YouTube channel, but there's also the SoundCloud stuff. You can go to christarose.com and generally find whatever I'm working on.
And Tone, how was the conference for you? Any highlights?
No, I thought it was good. Let me try video here. You guys let me know if to turn off the video if I have an internet problems. I mean, I really came down to the hackathon. I really enjoyed the hackathon. I stayed for the conference, and that was also pretty good, but I barely attended any of the presentations. I was like Chris. I helped out on their show. I was podcasting myself, basically upcoming video blog, and it was good. It was good. The hackathon was really good. I'm glad they me. Yeah.
I catch your video, man.
Yeah, I caught my video. So I'm glad that they let me be the keynote speaker at the hackathon, since I wasn't going to speak at the main conference. And I really enjoyed it. I'll definitely be back next year for the hackathon again. I'll stick around for the conference. I'll try and make it to the beach next time. But it's good. And also what Chris said about streaming on Exotica, I might be moving some content there. It does seem like a really cool platform. It would be nice to monetize it a little bit. I'm not even looking to like make money on this, but I enjoy what I'm doing, and I would love to like upgrade my equipment and provide better stuff for the viewers. So just like Chris, if I start monetizing these shows, all the money would get funneled back into just putting on the shows. That would be great. And I want to make it as voluntary as humanly possible. And Exotica seems to be doing a pretty good job. So I got to look into that some more.
It was great to see Tone at the conference in his hash base shirt, rocking the Paycoin. You guys know that 2 years ago, Paycoin sponsored the whole conference, had tons of ads, multiple booths. Was there any Paycoin representation this time?
No, I think just me. I think I was the only Paycoin representative there, and I talked about it a little bit. And yeah, I don't know if Chris is going to post the video, but I was the one that hosted that the regulatory law panel from the bathroom, and I found my inner Joseph and had to do it shirtless.
I want to add real quick. Yeah, no, I will be posting that video. Yeah, the legal panel, definitely. That's the Fart Zone panel. Yeah, so the thing you got to understand with the NABC, okay, and Mo and I have butted heads a lot over the years, but I got to commend him. The guy's been running a conference that's lasted, and one of the ways he does it is he lets the scammers come in and run their scams, and they only show up once, then they're done by this time next year. It used to bother me a lot. It still bothers me, but the truth is that like at some level in the space, like the scammers are always going to be here. So what I try to do is show a lot of the Bitcoiners what it's like to go to the NABC. So the scammers always want to be on like, camera so they can pump their scams. So we had a couple of them on. Prescott Regency seems like it's probably a scam. I didn't get them on in full. I got some of the representatives on, so we'll see. I got a soft commit for some follow-up. There is a guy who is, I forgot what it's called, Durbin. What was that one telling? Durbin something? They're selling like gold on the Ethereum blockchain. That's definitely a scam. That guy.
I don't know anything about that one. I'm hearing it from you now.
Yeah, that guy, I don't even know how to describe it. Definitely stay tuned for that interview. That guy's scam. This is one of those people, scammers don't know that they're scamming. He's been kicked out of like Dubai or something for running a scheme by which he was promising investors like 10% per month. It seems like upon further inspection that I guess the business plan was just to offer people 10% off of gold in perpetuity. And like that was his business model. I don't even know how to describe it, but he was interviewed. And so they did have like petty scams. You know what? I've been giving Mo like less crap about them. Maybe I shouldn't, but like the truth is that like you're gonna have scams at the NABC. It's part of the Florida experience. We should probably embrace it at some level. But here's what I will say. This is something I want all of you to kind of think about at some level. I'm starting to do a new thing where like, and I want the audience to really think about this. Like, who do these people work for that you're talking to? Because like I'm looking here, okay, and like I know that Tone doesn't work for anybody. Tone, looks at my equipment and he says to me like, "That's a nice soundboard. That's this." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's $100. That's whatever." And then Tone's like, "Well, the equipment adds up." And I'm like, "I know." But Tone works for you, the audience. That's who he works for. That's really all of you guys do here at the World Crypto Network. But some places that aren't like that. Epicenter Bitcoin works for whoever their guest is. That's who they work for. They work for the guy who's promoting a product. The NABC on the main stage, Pumper Mo works for whoever's paying him to speak at his event. But I don't work for that person. I work for the audience. So like for me, I can deliver significantly better journalism and content because I don't owe anybody anything. And it's up to me to give you guys better scoop that's watching. So like I think that we should be forcing more accountability in this space, asking these people like who the fuck they work for, and not letting them off the hook if they say they work for the audience, meanwhile they're pumping shitcoins or some bullshit.
Excellent points, Chris. And we're going to move on. Tone, do you have anything else to add about the Miami conference?
No. I think we covered it all. I strongly recommend people coming out next year. Definitely come to the hackathon. That was very enjoyable. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Can I weigh in really quick on this topic?
Go ahead, Blake.
I think that having real journalism is extremely important, and it's not necessarily valuable to decentralize everything, but to disintermediate the value sources in journalism is extremely important. Chris Ellis used to go to conferences and kind of run his own kind of show about what was going on and what he felt was being talked about or not talked about. And that's very, very valuable for the space in terms of seeing things from a perspective that's not purchased by somebody. And as innocent as you want to be, if your perspective, is modified by making or losing money, that's that's a huge compromise. So I just kudos to any show that not only goes out and tries to stir things up, but I guess people that are safe enough to stick to their opinions and to use their real names, it's actually becoming a really brave thing to do anymore. So when people are, actually controversial enough to be funny on a show and they have the integrity to use their real name, I mean, I just love that. I can't get enough of it. So I think that the World Crypto Network could use more shows, and all the people watching, if you want to follow in the footsteps of journalistic integrity, like we'd be more than happy to have you.
Now let's move on to the exit question. Exit question. What is the ideal location for a Bitcoin conference? Gabriel D. Vine.
Somewhere warm, somewhere that smells better than Miami. I'm going to go with Chile, Central Chile.
Tone Vase.
You know what? I think Miami is pretty good, but by the way, I gotta do a plug. This is what I forgot to mention. The Uber prices in Miami are unreal. The only country in the world that I've seen cheaper Uber prices was Vietnam. That is how Miami has become. It was amazing. So, but having said that, Miami still, hotels are still pretty expensive. Airbnbs are still somewhat expensive. South Beach is still like 30, 40 minutes away. But the climate is great. The weather is great. I am going to a conference in Mexico in a month, but that's in Acapulco, which is a bit of a pain in the ass to get to all the way on the South Coast. There's no direct flight. I would love to see a conference in Cancun. It's fairly central Mexico. It's fairly up north. It's about an equal distant flight from all of the major cities from America. It's a good party spot. It's right on the beach, and the Mexican peso is going down in price. So if I had to randomly pick a good destination, and it's good for foreigners because they don't have to come to the U.S., and I'm sure they can get flights to Cancun without going through America. So if anyone wants to do a conference in Cancun, I honestly think that would be a perfect location.
A conference in Cancun. Blake Anderson, the ideal location.
I think you already know what I'm going to say. The ideal location for a Bitcoin conference is in the frozen tundra of Minnesota. That's absolutely where everybody wants to go.
I was going to go Ice Castle, so yeah.
Ice Castle. I mean, we can either go with Minnesota, where it's really, really cold and where I live, or my ancestral lands of Iceland. I mean,
yeah, you and Joseph, you and Joseph will put it together.
We can have it. It'll keep all the riffraff out because it's too cold. So like Chris Rose won't be there, and then we can, plot like Jekyll Island and just carve up the industry. And then he won't, with his meddling kids, won't be able to peel our masks off, and it'll be great. No, I think actually Minnesota in the summer would be nice because it's really, really lush and green there in the summertime, and it's kind of centrally located. Other than that, I don't know. Texas was fun, but I like Minnesota better because I'm from here, so I'm biased.
Chris DeRose.
Well, I'm very disappointed in all of you. The correct answer is the moon. Every Bitcoiner knows that. You've all failed. You're not Bitcoiners.
It's so hard to breathe on the moon. Theo Goodman.
There's been some good choices so far, and I'm not sure if I have a better answer. I was going to say in a nuclear silo would be pretty interesting, but I think it would be hard to get people to come there. But it would force everyone to talk to each other for a long time. So you couldn't get away from them if you were all in a nuclear silo together. And the reason why we would be in a nuclear silo is that is a prepping action for the next conference, which would be located on the moon.
At least we would be safe in the silo. And while I'd like to go with my current hometown of San Francisco, the correct answer is Las Vegas. Las Vegas is the ideal location for a Bitcoin conference. The flights are cheap. The hotels are cheap. The rooms are cheap. The girls are cheap. The drugs are cheap. Las Vegas is cheap. Las Vegas is the place to hold your Bitcoin conference. You could even invite me. It's a cheap flight.
Let's do it. I agree. I'm going to change my official answer. There's good, cheap drugs in Las Vegas, and we need to keep that in mind as one of the important factors.
They need to tell more people about it. They even legalized medicinal marijuana or something, so it's all happening.
Medicinal LSD for
Maybe
sure.
Even recreational. Not sure. Let's move on to predictions or story of the week. Blake Anderson, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
Yeah, I guess I'm ready with the story of the week. A lot of my time is spent people coming to me with ideas and stuff like that for different companies that they want to start up in the Bitcoin space, and I'm generally very hard on those people. Hopefully, one-to-one, but I think that if your idea can't survive my criticisms, it's going to have a really hard time going to market. But I did hear of actually two really, really good ideas this week that are really exciting. One of the ideas involves getting information into computers and into the internet, which computers are not good at doing, basically like images and driving and stuff like that, kind of right brain, more creative stuff, identifying sentiment and stuff. Like computers suck at that without a giant amount of programming, which then becomes unstable and hard to host and stuff. So there is an idea for a Bitcoin company that's coming out with an app that's going to harvest sentiment and actual other types of information, and then help to integrate those into other networks. So it will be a really, really, really big blow in terms of the general idea of, technologically empowered collectivism is probably what we don't want to see come from our current times. What we want to see is technologically empowered individualism and kind of a solution to the Kurt Vonnegut future of, we've already kind of disenfranchised manual labor, and now we're going to disenfranchise kind of intellectual labor. What are people going to do in the future in terms of money and wealth and transfer and stuff without becoming a communist nightmare? I think a big part of that is finding ways of transitioning value and signals about and bringing on a new economy. So when I see projects that do that and they don't centralize and do it in an irresponsible way, like that's what really excites me. So I would say if you're going to be out there looking for things to invest in, please look for things that you're actually excited about and you think are going to last. Please don't look for signals from venture capitalists that are just going to cast their net and try to find a unicorn, because, you know, as small investors, that's definitely not a good way to use your hard-earned money. You know, the most direct way to vote is with your money. So I'll probably try to give more specific data on this project coming up. It's still an infant, so I don't want to, you know, blow their can of beans. But I think that the advice that I want to come from this is, you know, invest in things that you believe in, for the love of God. Please don't go around trying to figure out who the smartest guy that you can latch onto is and what he's investing in, because that's a pretty sure path to failure.
It's raining like crazy in San Francisco. There's even thunder. Chris DeRose.
Okay, so this is actually something that, frankly, I'm very passionate about. You're all going to laugh. I'm going to read off a tweet from Ryan Selkis. The tweet is this: the consensus conference is targeting 40% women and 25% people of color as speakers. And you can apply to, you know, so-and-so for more details.
Now
So-
again, for definition's sake, those are quotas. This is an issue that's been widely discussed, affirmative action, quotas. You have different opinions, but those are definitely quotas.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a bunch of, you can read the thread, and I highly encourage people to start chiming in on this, because this is an amazing, ridiculous issue.
You got that in your email account, right, Chris?
What, that invite? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I butt heads with him so much now that they've been taking me off all their lists. Yeah, I mean, okay, so just a couple quick points on this. Please, if anyone can send me somebody to debate on this, I'm dying to know why I'm a misogynist. I have yet to get any easy answers that make any sense to me whatsoever. Frankly, I don't care about gender. Like, it's almost impossible for me to be a sexist, best I can tell, because I don't even care enough about gender to be a sexist. I don't mind if you have a penis or a vagina, and that is in fact the allegation, is that I'm a sexist because I don't care about it. But I'm not buying that, and I feel like that argument implodes very quickly.
You're a white man promoting meritocracy. How dare you promote meritocracy, you dirty son of a bitch?
Well, what's the difference? He says he's targeting 40% women and 25% people of color. What's the difference if he had said he's targeting 60% men and 75% white people? Like, it seems
what's
to me,
what's unfortunate here
It's
is
not
that
based on
we're
merit.
focused on the quotas, not the qualifications. We shouldn't be judging if you're a woman or if you're a minority. We should be judging if you have a good idea, if you have an interesting, if you've educated yourself, if you've worked hard. These should be where we're judging. But unfortunately, we do have these quotas. I think the issue here, people want to improve things. They want to include women and minorities, but unfortunately, they use these kind of blunt tools where they end up taking out what makes people unique, what makes their projects interesting, and then just making them numbers in this system. But I think it's a complex issue.
It's worse than that, because what they're telling you is that, like, this person isn't good enough by male standards to speak, but for a woman, she's pretty good. So that sounds to me to be very sexist. And you know what? Here's the thing too: is that it's unsustainable. Like, if they want to get these people in, that's fine. But the problem is that you have people like Tony Lane Casserole going on there, embarrassing all of the women by saying things that she needs to. Women like cigarettes because they look like penises, and she's grossly underqualified. But that's as good as they could do. So it doesn't help women at all. I think that this is completely self-defeating. I try to talk to Ryan about it. There's no discussion. That's the thing with these people. There's no discussion. You get blocked, or they just like, nah, I'm not helping. I'm not. They dip out because there's no metacognition there. They've never thought about it even for a second. They're saying things to belong to a group. And this gets into, who do you work for? Because Ryan Selkis does not work for you, the Bitcoiners. I know that because you guys are mostly sensible people, but you're also 96% men. So who does he work for? Well, he's pandering to the sensitivities of his advertisers, seemingly. Or what I would allege more specifically is I think he's looking for like a promotion or a way out, and he's looking to have some sort of like political record of leading, female initiatives in a way that can probably further his career. That would be my more specific allegation. But it doesn't work for you guys, because you know what? He would discriminate against you on these very ridiculous grounds, and really against any gender. He doesn't. He sees sex as an issue.
Even in his unfortunate tweet, it seems that he's only tweeting these quotas to please Meltem, so that Meltem won't get upset with him in the tweet I think we're discussing here. So.
And I think that it goes both ways. You have to be critical of everybody. Like, if somebody was like, I'm running a conference, but I'm not going to invite Elizabeth Stark because she's a woman, I'd be like, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. She's a brilliant speaker. But if
we have had events in the past, like the Necker Island events, where women were not invited. Then the women were offered to stay on a separate island. There's been some questionable elements there. But again, like Chris is saying, it's not sure if these women were the cream of the crop or if they were just being included to include some
I
women.
don't know
It's
if about
difficult.
that
I
issue,
think-
but anytime you're going to have somebody speak just because they are, X or Y, then that's not meritocracy. It's actually the bigotry of low expectations, like Chris brought up. It's not something that's neutral. It's not virtue signaling if you actually think through the conclusions for what they are. It's a terrible thing to support and to do. The bigotry of low expectations is not just neutral and okay. It's an extremely terrible thing. When people post stuff like that with quotas and stuff and they're not realizing that they're doing that, that's disgusting to me. There's no thought there at all.
I think it's just unbelievable that we're up here and we're men mansplaining other men.
That's a good point, Theo.
how
This
we
is an
need to-
all-male group today. We are failing once again.
We're mansplaining the mansplaining on the blockchain, and we're going into the bro census. This is not consensus. This is now bro census, and we've got a bro census. This whole thing is totally out of whack, and I totally agree. It's not based on skills or merit. It's just based on, what gender you say you are, and then you get a spot. I mean, that's definitely, I don't know how anyone doesn't see that as really confused. And what I've seen on the tweets is that it's often talked about in the context of appealing to a grosser audience. So there's some kind of theme about, we got to get a bunch of, I don't know who is supposed to go there, or
They like it a signal to virtue,
or maybe.
Well,
advertise.
and I think we
Copyright,
all want Bitcoin to be interested in or women to be interested in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is money, and women use money, women buy things. But if they're not interested, we can't force them to be interested. And if only 2 or 3 of them are interested, we might not want to have them speak. There's a qualifications gap there, but we do want them.
And if we don't get 40% women at the bro census, then all we've got left to watch is NFL and MMA, and that's not art.
Here's another thing I would say: is Daira, is she under the what quota is she representing? Is it the male or the women quota? And what are the qualifications to being trans? Certainly, I don't care. Like, I just don't care. If she has good content, she can speak. I don't care what the fuck she wears, what she identifies as. I'm only there for the content. I think that Junseth is a notorious woman in the space, and my suspicion is that they will be rejecting his proposal on the grounds that he's not a woman. To which I require that these people come and take a look at his vagina, because I think that's what's appropriate.
And it's true, Chris. Once they start putting the percentages up, they need to put a percentage up for everybody, and then we're having a big percentage discussion. Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, let me jump on this. I'm gonna yield my time to this issue. I've just been busy over the last week. But Chris, I got a funny story of how we found this out. It's like a couple of us were sitting around the table last night having a drink 2 nights ago. And Fluffy Pony to show him this email, and at the same time someone else whose name I don't want to mention, he was looking at his phone and he almost threw his phone across the table, and we were both like frustrated, and then we realized we're frustrated over the same exact thing. We just happened to look at our phones at the same exact time. So that was really hilarious at the drink table last night. Let me just comment on this real quick. I'm actually going to put in an application to speak at I haven't had the time yet, but I am going to reply to that email because I got the email in my inbox. I'll reply straight to it. I'm going to apply to speak because I think I am as competent of a speaker at these conferences as anyone. And I mean anyone, okay? And I want to see if I get rejected from this conference. And I probably will. Now, as for the women issue, there are competent women in the space. You should know who they are. If they don't know who they are, I'll gladly give them a list. You contact them, you offer them, you pay for their expenses to get to the conference, and they will speak there. I would love to see Julia to speak there. Okay, I would love to see Adela speak. Morgan is a very competent speaker in the space. There are women they can speak. They should be reaching out to them and speaking if they think the audience is worth listening to. Now, Chris, what you and I should do, and I don't know if you've thought about this, let's seriously start calling up Backpage, and we can put together a panel of female users in the space of Bitcoin and pitch them this panel and see what they say. If we can do this at like the biggest conference in America.
Well, I mean, here's what I would tell you. That's perfectly fine. If I had the time for this conference, I would actually probably be more involved in some of this. I would tell you to do one of the two things, perhaps, Tone. Apply as a woman, Tone Vase, or just make up an identity that's a woman. And then at the last minute, like go over there, have like a PGP key that you use for your emails or something. And, you know, make up like an alias or something, tell them you're a woman, and then just show up as Tone Vase and see what the fuck they do. Like, you gain points with the community when you do that because now you're working for the community. I know that everyone in this channel wants to see you take a stand on something like that because it's bullshit. And you get a lot of cred when you do. And on that front, by the way, I want to just mention Kyle Torpey is taking like a leadership position on this, and he did so right off the bat. Rather than work for, theoretically at least, the advertisers that Ryan Selkis seems to want to support, he went out and said, this is bullshit. And I know that Kyle Torpey, not only is he a great journalist in the space, but he thinks about what the ramifications are for his audience of these types of things. And you should do it too. You know what? Push the lines, push the boundaries. People want to see that kind of stuff.
As long as this doesn't end in Tone dressing in drag.
Well, I just wanted to add in really quick, journalism is reporting stuff that somebody doesn't want people to know. Everything else is public relations. So I have to agree exactly with what Chris just said.
Also, we second Chris's shout out. We had Kyle on the show last week and featured one of his articles this week. So great work, Kyle.
Kyle's the man.
Tone, anything else to settle this issue before we move on?
Oh my God, Tone, your mic is going to make me kill myself. All we heard was what?
At this point, like it might actually like this is not something I would.
His blockchain is forking.
Oh well,
Yeah.
well, we went to you, Tone. But Chris, anything more on this issue, or are we good to move on?
No, I think we're good to move on, but I would encourage the community and the guys watching this to like just not let this fucking stuff stand. Like, you're the guys who lose on that stuff. Like, call out these people. This is how like just nonsense happens, and it makes all Bitcoiners look bad. All of us.
Theo Goodman, do you have a prediction or a story of the week?
Yes, of course. I have both a combination story of the week and more than one prediction, because as you know, it's NFL time this weekend, and on Sunday is the conference championship of the AFC and NFC. The Green Bay Packers face the Atlanta Falcons, and we have a historical high total. Right now, the total score is 60, over under 60 points, historically high. So I don't know, it'll probably go over. So that's it's going to go over the total of 60. Also, a sub prediction, the second half is going to be the highest scoring half. And currently you get that prop bet at plus 100. The defenses are going to get tired, and the second half is going to be the half with the most points. That's an interesting one to look at. Also, the Patriots face the Steelers. I think the Patriots are going to cover the point spread of -6 points. And that is the prediction of the week.
Gabriel D. Vaughn.
I will not be speaking about the NFL today. I wanted to take things in the conspiracy theory direction, as I want to do. Trump coming in, I think, amazingly enough, I normally wouldn't say this, but I do think that the Trump administration is actually the face of a new of a sea change in the deep state. I believe that they have actually there's actually a new group of powerful individuals in charge of the United States, and I don't really include Trump necessarily in those, but perhaps as their minion. So unlike many anarchists like Jeffrey Tucker, who say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's just yet another face on the same state. I think there actually will be quite a number of material changes coming to the United States as a result of this administration representing a new deep state alliance. And so my first prediction about that is that we will see some massive data releases / leaks / dumps. So all of the above. So official releases like the CIA, which just did one, of course, under Obama a few days ago, in addition to leaks coming out from the new administration or various people in the underlings. And my first prediction of the leaks is we're going to get some information about Antarctica coming out very soon. That's my prediction.
I was hoping for UFOs. Can you tie it in with UFOs? Are there UFOs in Antarctica?
Yes.
Yeah. Old Nazi base from the 40s that's been in continuous production with anti-gravity craft. So that's the and also ultra ancient ruins.
I do always wonder with transition of power to transition of power why we don't find out about Roswell, or why we don't find out about whichever one's your favorite. But
secrets revealed. I think we're going to actually start to see that stuff over the coming years. But Antarctica news about ancient ruins and extremely advanced technology first.
Maybe I want to link into that, because if you're going to link into Antarctica and ancient ruins, of course, there's definitely a connection between the magical disappearance of climate change from the website suddenly, and that must have to do with a cover-up with the Antarctica thing, and also just say it 3 times slow, 3 times fast. Trumpets. The trumpets of the book of Revelation.
It's the apocalypse. The eschatological connections are absolute.
I thought for sure we were going that Pepe carvings had been found in Antarctica, but we'll have to wait till next week for that. Moving on, Tone Vase.
You don't realize that Theo is just what Trade with Dave was like when he was Theo's age. Like, the Theo will become Trade with Dave in another 20, 30 years or so. Keep going.
Tone Vase, prediction or story of the week.
No, I'm good. I yielded my time over to the issue of the UFO conference.
The audience wants more. They want Tone dressed in drag at the next conference.
I was saying, I don't know if you guys hear me, but you know what? If I had more free time on my hands and more resources, if I was Bitcoin,
you don't have a job. How much more free time are you gonna get?
No, it's actually no. Well, anyway, if I had more free time and more resources on my hands, I probably would quickly come up with a female identity and then show up and drag, because at this point, this space is getting so ridiculous that maybe that will is what's needed. I don't know.
You have to show up and drag every single time that you're at the conference, except for when you're speaking. When they call you out, be like, I changed my mind. That's my prerogative as a woman.
Check it out. Tone with the accent over the E is like tone, and that's your speaking role.
This show is going downhill fast. Nobody
Tony,
put on blackface. No blackface.
What's up? Sorry, Tony, you got to try to engage the audience a little bit too. I've been doing this more and more, and as the audience grows, this has been working a little bit better. But I would just go so far as to say, Tony, if someone in the audience managed to do an application as a woman, would you then go as that woman to this event?
I would.
Okay, so there you go. So audience, if you want to see that happen, that's something you can do to make it happen, and I would love to see it happen. So hopefully one of you does it.
Yes. Just a little bit of homework.
I want to be there to hit on Tone the whole time to make him uncomfortable.
No, I was actually gonna hit up some of the names I mentioned earlier, and you know what? Because if CoinDesk sees this, the whole scam is up. So let me not talk about my plans on the air.
They don't do any research. We're safe.
Yeah, nobody
nobody
watches these shows. Nobody watches them except them. That's why they know all about it. But
and finally, a prediction or a story of the week. My story of the week is agree to disagree. Liberals are freaked out right now. Conservatives are very happy. But I think what's important is that we both say what we believe in, be honest about it, and then agree to disagree. We're not going to get together. I'm not going to convince you. You're not going to convince me. We're both going to have to sit on the sidelines and see how this Trump thing plays out. The early signs, I'm still freaked out. The early signs, I don't know, you're ignoring them or you don't care or you think it's going to be good. So we're going to wait and see how it goes. But in the meantime, let's try to agree to disagree. Let's try to come back together as, reasonable people who can have political views and espouse them. But at the end of it, let's not fight forever because I'm going to keep espousing my liberal views and you're going to keep espousing your conservative views, and we're both not going to stop. So let's just agree to disagree. And that's about it for this show. And we're running out of time. So until next week, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.